Let's talk about fasting today. If you've been following me for very long, you've probably heard me say multiple times that I really don't ever fast. I don't find it to be a particularly helpful tool for me for various reasons, and I just don't do it. When I have tried it, I've not had a good experience. But recently, I fasted for a very specific purpose in a very specific way, and I might have changed my mind a little bit. So I want to talk with you about that today. If you happen to be new here, I'm Jen, and I am delighted to meet you. If you're not new, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. Let's start by discussing generally why I personally do not fast. Fasting is a fairly common thing amongst carnivores, which I was strictly carnivore for 1.5 years. I had incredible healing on a carnivore diet. I've changed some things just a little bit lately with my diet, which we'll discuss in a bit. But one thing that a lot of carnivores do is incorporate fasting in some way. Some of them do intermittent fasting, some of them do alternate day fasting, some of them do longer fasts. Everyone just seems to be kind of different, and everyone has a different experience of what's worked for them, what they think I should try, and all of that kind of thing. But in general, I think the main reason that fasting is not a particularly good fit for me is because I come from a background of binge eating. I was a binge eater for over 20 years, and so when I put restrictions on when I can eat, I feel sometimes like a teenager who's being punished, and I just have to rebel against whatever guidelines I've been given. So sometimes I've tried intermittent fasting where I stop eating around 2 or 3 in the afternoon or something like that. Or I've also tried it where I don't start eating until later in the day, like noon. But it just seems like sometimes I just can't help myself. I end up eating during the time I'm not supposed to be eating, or when I am supposed to be eating, I eat way more food than I need. It's just a mental game, and I just don't think it's something that I should be playing. Now, that is the main reason. But the other reason is that some of the issues that I seem to have experienced as a carnivore have to do with my blood sugar getting too low. And I think fasting in general seems like not a good way to support my blood sugar when I'm having hypoglycemia. So we'll discuss this more with my recent experiment, but that's another reason that it just doesn't seem to be the right answer for me. Now, I did do one 24-hour fast about 1 year ago, and I made it the 24 hours with white knuckles. I mean, it was pretty hard to do, but I did do it. But then as soon as I started eating again, it's like I couldn't stop myself. And so the next day, I shared all this on Instagram. The next day, I basically said, I have a confession to make. I made it through my 24-hour fast, but then I just lost it. I came the closest I'd come ever as a carnivore to binge eating again, and it just felt like a lot of out of control thinking and just not a good experience for me. So really, that was my last attempt at fasting. However, fasting has sort of made its way back into my life just a little bit, almost by accident. And there's a few reasons for that. One is I'm working with a coach, Coach Jen Winkler, who's helping me really navigate my hormone levels, my lab work, my experience as a carnivore, the symptoms I've been feeling that don't seem quite right. She's been really helping me navigate that and make the best decisions as far as supplements and how to change my diet just a little bit and things like that. She's also an expert on the menstrual cycle, and one thing she told me recently is that if for any reason I want to experiment with fasting, I should do it during the follicular phase of my cycle. So that's the time in your menstrual cycle after you've menstruated, but before you ovulate, which we won't go into this, but I'm tracking all of that super closely. So every single day, I know exactly where I am in that cycle. And I've learned so much about my body for that reason, which has been incredible. Totally a topic for another video on another day. But she said to me, yeah, if you want to try fasting, this is the time to do it. And I thought, I have the perfect occasion where fasting would actually be really useful. And that occasion is that one of my besties is getting married in 2 weeks. And yesterday was her bachelorette party. So myself and 5 other girls, we drove about 4 hours to this little wine town in Herman, Missouri. It's just a beautiful town full of wineries. And so the whole bachelorette party was meant to be go from one winery to another, to another, to another, eat snacks in between, go out to eat, drink lots of wine, and just, bachelorette around town. And I knew that that's not necessarily what I wanted to do from the standpoint of eating and drinking. I haven't drank in nearly 2 years. I've had one glass of wine about a year ago. But other than that, I've been completely sober, a complete teetotaler, and it doesn't seem like drinking is something that serves me well. When it comes to my psoriasis, it seems that alcohol and sugar absolutely are the biggest culprits that make my skin flare up. And so drinking something sweet and delicious like wine or cocktails or all the kinds of things that we had at this party, it's terrible for my skin by itself, any kind of alcohol. But once I get that sweet taste, it's just, okay, now I'll have the caramel popcorn. Okay, now I'll have the pizza. Okay, now I'll have the ice cream. You know, it's just, if you give a mouse a cookie. If you are my age, about 40 or so, you know that reference. It's a book about how one thing leads to the next, and it's just this whole vicious cycle. By the way, is it vicious cycle or vicious circle? I think it's cycle, but let me know in the comments if I'm wrong about that. But anywho, back to the situation at hand, I knew that I didn't want to spend a lot of money. So that was one thing that made me not want to partake in all of these activities that involved eating and drinking. But also, I wasn't sure there would be really anything I could eat, and I was basically right. Let's just say that. So I said, okay, I'm going to try an OMAD. I'm going to eat a really big meal before I head to Missouri, and then I'm going to just go the whole day without eating. I'll drink water, of course, sparkling water even when I go to restaurants and stuff, but I'm going to try not to partake in any treats. I'm not even going to order any food at restaurants, even carnivore friendly food, unless I'm really hungry. And I did take a carnivore bar with me, which is just a bar made of beef, tallow, and salt. It's about 400 calories. It's mostly fat. So I knew that if I got hungry, I would have that option. But it turns out I made the whole day truly not even tempted to eat any of the delicious looking snacks that everyone was raving about. We went to a couple restaurants and I just truly wasn't that tempted. And the girls were like, isn't it hard? Isn't this difficult? Do you wish you were eating it? Do you wish you were drinking? And I want to get into my answers to some of those questions, but for now, no, the answer is no. I didn't feel left out. I felt completely satisfied. I was never really hungry. In the evening around 6 or 7 or so, I was becoming aware that I wasn't full anymore, I guess you could say, which I would say my hunger signals are not particularly strong anyway. I don't really think I feel hunger very often. I'm often eating when I'm really not hungry. And I think that's been one of my problems when it comes to trying to lose weight on a carnivore diet. But that morning before I left for Missouri, I had a big breakfast. It was 6 eggs, 2 tablespoons of butter, 4 slices of bacon, 1.5 cups of raw milk. And then on my way there, I had a decaf coffee with about 2 tablespoons of heavy cream. So let me tell you exactly what the macros are for that. It's about 1,350 calories, 70 grams of protein, 22 grams of carbs, and 106 grams of fat. So a very heavy fat diet with a little bit of carbs from the milk and not a lot of calories. I mean, I think on a daily basis, I need more than that. But it's not like I was super active either. I mean, I was walking through wineries, but I wasn't doing a hardcore workout or anything like that. And like I said, I found it easy to make it through the day. We sat down for lunch at like 2 or 2:30. It was a very late lunch. And I definitely wasn't hungry then. I was full still from my breakfast. But by dinner time, like I said, I could sense this sort of sensation of hunger, just not fullness anymore. But by that time, I was like, shoot, I've almost made it. I really want to see what happens with my blood sugars if I don't eat all day. Because my number one fear is that my overnight blood sugar would dip super low and create a cortisol spike and put me back in this issue I believe I've been dealing with where cortisol gets spiked too much and it wakes me up in the middle of the night and I'm like wired and tired and then just sort of running on adrenaline all day. Here's my blood sugar graph so you can see how that looked and how things actually turned out. Using my Nutrisense continuous glucose monitor, you can see that my blood sugar stayed pretty darn steady all day. Around 7 a.m. is when I had that giant breakfast I told you about. So my blood sugar went to the highest of the day, which is about 90. And then it just sort of slowly dropped throughout the day. You can see that around 4 and 8 p.m. it dropped pretty significantly. And I saw that before I went to bed, and I thought, uh-oh, here we go. It's going to drop super low overnight. But it didn't. So here's the next day, which is this morning, middle of the night. My blood sugar was incredibly steady, solid as a rock. Honestly, so steady for many hours, it didn't even change, that I almost was like, okay, is that an error? But I don't see anything on here that would lead me to believe there's anything in error here. So we're going to go with it. I think it just stayed super duper steady. It did not drop super low. And then when I woke up right around 7, there was a tiny little bump in my blood sugar, just probably from me waking up, being active, naturally having a little bit of a cortisol spike. And then I had some coffee with a little bit of 2% milk, just because that's all I had access to at the hotel that I wanted to eat. Now, they did have scrambled eggs, bacon, sausage, yogurt, a bunch of things that seem healthy when you just casually look. But I inspected everything and did not trust anything. The eggs were super fluffy and kind of white, and I just think they were probably powdered or some kind of a liquid mixture that the hotel got. And the bacon was really so thin, it was almost translucent. At best, it was like microwave bacon, but at worst, it was probably some combination of things that look like bacon, probably covered in a bunch of oils I don't want. Same with the sausage. The yogurt was, flavored and sweetened and all that. So I was like, you know what? I'm good with the fasting. I'm just going to have this coffee. Technically, that broke my fast. But instead of eating breakfast with my friends, I, of course, sat there and enjoyed their conversation. And, we had a great time. But I waited and ended up breaking my fast on my way home. I had about a 4-hour drive, and I started that drive around 11. So at probably 11:30, I had that Carnivore bar that I brought with me. And then I actually went to a gas station to get some pork rinds that I really like. Turkey Creek is the brand I like. I've only ever seen them at gas stations, but they only had a really big bag that the total calories, because there's 8 servings and it's 80 calories a piece, so 640 calories for the bag. And so I kind of just didn't trust myself to be in the car for 4 hours with that whole bag. I knew I'd eat the whole thing, which would have been okay, actually. But I knew I was also going to get a Carnivore bar. And then I also knew I would stop at Starbucks and get a decaf Americano with heavy cream. And so that would have added up to be over 1,000 calories, which again is fine. But I also knew that once I got home, I'd want to actually have real food and meals with my family and friends. So I didn't choose to break my fast with so many calories, and that's why. By the way, here is how I order at Starbucks.
What can we get started for you?
I would like a venti decaf Americano hot, please. And I'd like that with heavy cream.
What was that last part, with heavy cream?
Yes, please.
Just a splash?
A generous splash.
Okay, anything else?
That's it.
Alrighty, it'll be $4.59. I'll see you at the window.
Thank you.
By the way, going back to the blood sugar graph, you can see that when I ate my Carnivore bar at around 11:30, my blood sugar was incredibly stable, basically a flat line. And then when I got my coffee with the heavy cream, I'm guessing it had about 3 tablespoons of cream based on the color and the taste. That shot my blood sugar up a little to like 86 or something like that. Let's see, I'll see what, 83. So not bad at all. And then when I got home, I ate about 7 ounces of chicken breast in a cup of chicken or bone broth. So it was a very, very high protein. In fact, before I finish up this video, I will expand the blood sugar chart a little bit further so that what you're seeing on this video will include after that chicken. Because I know a lot of people say, when you have so much protein at once, it super spikes your blood sugar and your insulin. And I don't really find that to be the case for myself. So what I ate when I got home, like I said, was about 7 ounces of chicken breast, a cup of bone broth, and Carnivore Jello, which is made out of electrolytes and beef gelatin. And that's about 75 grams of protein. So that's a lot in one sitting. And I had it all within, 10 or 15 minutes. So I'll show you what my blood sugar looks like as soon as I wrap up this video. Let's circle back to when my friends were asking me, don't you feel like you're missing out? Are you full? Are you satisfied? Are you still having fun? When they asked me those kinds of things. The answer is yes, I definitely still had fun. I got to spend time with women that I love, especially the bride. I mean, she's one of my best friends. And so getting to spend that time and a beautiful place. Missouri in October, I'm telling you, there's nothing better. So from that standpoint, I wasn't missing out at all. It was wonderful. It can get a little dicey being the only sober one with a bunch of drunk girls, but really it's totally fine. And then to answer, do you miss it? I started to answer to my friend, I actually think I like it this way better because I don't have to deal with how you feel the morning after and how you sleep terribly and all that. And then mid-conversation, I sort of changed my answer to, I feel very neutral about it because there were fun things that I liked about drinking with my friends and eating garbage food, but specifically the drinking. I mean, I liked feeling a little tipsy and just a little more uninhibited. That's fun, but I never stopped there. I mean, I would just keep drinking until I was about asleep, really. That's the most common thing that would happen to me. But then you also don't sleep very well, at least I don't. It makes my heart rate much faster than typical. I'm just so hot all night. I wake up with a super dry mouth and so thirsty. Those kinds of things started happening once I was at least in my mid-30s, so it became much less fun. And then the next day, it's always so hard to recover and you just eat terribly. And so I didn't have to deal with any of that. But I did miss out on those things that I enjoyed. So truly, I feel like it's a net zero for me. I feel truly neutral about it, which is good. I mean, it just feels like a sense of contentment. I don't feel like, I can't do it. And I also don't feel like, yay, I'm not drinking. I just feel very neutral. So that's my real answer, I think, to the question, do you miss it? Do you feel like you're missing out? No, I feel totally fine, normal, and very content. So will I ever fast again? I think maybe, but I'm going to be very strategic about doing it during the follicular phase per Coach Jen's recommendations. There's something about that time between your period and ovulation where your hormones are at very low levels anyway. And so fat is a good time to do fasting. This is per Jen. I'm not an expert on this. And no, I have not read Mindy Pell's book. I'm assuming this kind of content is in her book as well, Fast Like a Girl. But during the luteal phase, after ovulation in preparation for either growing a baby or getting your next period, things are a little bit different and you have to be more careful with fasting. So in 2 weeks, this friend who had the bachelorette party is actually having her wedding. And I was thinking to myself, perfect, I'll do the same thing. I'll do an OMAD where I eat a big old breakfast and then I'll go through the wedding day and just not eat or drink, besides water, of course, but not worry about taking in any more calories. Then I realized that's in 2 weeks. I'm definitely going to be in my luteal phase. So I probably won't do it. Now, I'm not saying you can't fast at all during your luteal phase, but I already know that fasting is typically a big struggle for me. And that time 1 year ago that I mentioned that I just went off the deep end and basically nearly binged afterwards and felt terrible. I don't know what phase of my menstrual cycle that was. And actually, I can't even tell you because I had an IUD at that time. So I wasn't menstruating at all. So that complicates things. But I can tell you that that was really freaking hard and I did not like it. And I typically really don't like even intermittent fasting. I feel restricted. I feel a little hangry. I just don't like it. This time was just so easy and just nothing, it was very neutral and I was just very content, like I said. And so I think going forward for me, for now, if I'm considering fasting, it'll be OMADs during my follicular phase. And for me, I think there was something to having the eating be in the morning. So I could go through my whole day feeling really full. And then the next morning I can wake up and eat versus eating until evening time, then waking up the next day knowing I can't eat, I have to get to dinner. There's something mentally more challenging about that for me. So if you're like me, a youngish woman who's still cycling anyway, I think maybe this could be a useful tool for you too if you've previously struggled with fasting. Consider during the follicular phase, consider maybe an OMAD instead of a different kind of fast where maybe you have to go longer without eating. Consider maybe having that meal in the morning. At least those are the things that really helped me. Now, I don't necessarily care to make a lifestyle of fasting. I don't want to put restrictions on myself in that way. But when it's a tool that helps my lifestyle, like, oh, I have this big event, it would just be so much easier to not have to mess with eating. If it's the right timing in my cycle, I think I'm going to do this. So I'll definitely let you know with future fasts how they go. with this one, like I said, I just can't even believe how well it went. I'm not even dreading doing it again. And that's where I stand. I'd love to hear your experience with fasting. I'm sure this will lead to a lot of comments below because so many of you love fasting or, have really specific recommendations on what has helped you. And I am so appreciative of you sharing those. I just feel like I'm a very specific puzzle piece and I have to fit in a very specific spot in the puzzle for this. But maybe this is one place that I fit. So thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I'm so happy to have you. I hope you're having a lovely, lovely fall, and go Chiefs. You can see my little blanket back there. You know about the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes and Taylor Swift's boyfriend. I got my Chiefs red on today. Anyway, this was not a video about the Chiefs, but here we go. So let me know in the comments if you love or hate the Chiefs too. But again, have a lovely day. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. I'm going to have a lot more content coming soon about how I've been making some changes to my diet, just a little bit away from carnivore, and spoiler alert, a little bit back toward carnivore. And also I do want to share some more about what I'm doing for cycle tracking. So women or men, I guess, who have a woman that might care about that kind of thing, stay tuned. Currently, I'm doing a lot of things to really understand my body and to track my cycle and to not get pregnant. But in the future, I will be switching that up in hopes to achieve pregnancy. So that'll be a really exciting discussion, I think. So subscribe if you want to catch that. Hold up, I forgot something really important. I've literally been sitting here scrolling the internet, looking at Instagram, waiting for my blood sugar to stabilize so I can show you what happens after having that high protein meal. But I forgot something really important to mention about my fasting experience, which is that I had a butt ton of cramps last night. Now, cramping, leg cramps especially, has been a big problem for me as a carnivore. And it's always worse the more ketosis I'm in. So I know a lot of people promote super high fat, high levels of ketosis, and say that that's what I've been doing wrong. But I'm telling you, whenever I'm in a lot of ketosis, I feel the worst. And I always have cramps at night. Almost 50% of the nights, I would say, I have cramps at night, even though I'm very diligent about taking electrolytes and all that. But it's definitely worse the more ketosis I'm in. And since adding a little bit of carbs back to my diet for the last 2 months, I've almost completely gotten rid of my cramps. I think just that little bit of carbs is all I needed. But with my fasting, I've been giving a raving review of how it went, but I forgot to mention that multiple times during the night, I woke up with leg cramps. And then just today at breakfast, sitting at the table, barely moving at all, I would get a terrible cramp in my glute or my hamstring, and I'd have to stand up to get the cramp to go away. So I don't have my finger stick ketone monitor with me. I'm at my boyfriend's house, which is why it's so beautiful behind me. But I guarantee you I'm in ketosis after this fasting experience based on those cramps and the sort of metallic taste in my mouth. You probably know what I mean if you've experimented with ketosis. But anyway, I don't want you to think it was all perfect because I forgot about that little bit. Oh my gosh, I keep cracking myself up thinking of things I want to tell you that I forgot, but I'm still just sitting here playing on my phone. So I'm remembering. I just want to point out one more thing, that my experience with fasting this time and my relatively stable blood sugars, and specifically my lack of a huge blood sugar drop overnight, I'm not ruling out that might have happened still had I been completely carnivore for days up until the fast, because now I've been including some carbs in my diet. I understand that means that my muscles and my liver have some glycogen stores, so that may play a role. Part of the problem that I have is that I'm not very good at controlling variables, right? If you're really doing a true experiment, even an experiment of one on myself, you don't have any really specific answers unless you're only changing one little thing at a time. But I'm not very patient, okay? So my success, specifically with blood sugar this time, could be because I'm in the follicular phase of my cycle, could be because I ate a really high fat OMAD meal in the morning, could be because I've been eating a little bit of carb containing foods leading up to the fast. It could be any combination of those things. So I just don't want you to think that I'm like, well, this was my experience, so this is exactly how it is. Okay, it's more nuanced than that. I understand that, and I want you to understand that too. All right, I'm getting sick of waiting. So I'm going to share with you the blood sugar results from my heavier protein meal. I should give it another hour to completely come down, but like I said, I'm not that patient. So I'm just going to show you where we are right now. So my blood sugar went up some. I mean, it went up to 87 at the highest. That's not even my highest spike of the day. Earlier I had an 88 after having the coffee with the milk. So my very high protein meal didn't even increase my blood sugar as much as a little bit of carbs did. So I don't know. Like I said, in my experience, high doses of protein don't super spike my blood sugar, which leads me to believe it doesn't super spike my insulin. So I don't think that for me, eating too much protein at one time has ever really been an issue. And lots of people in my comments suggest that it may be. It may be for some people, but I'm just telling you, it doesn't seem to be for me. Anyway, for the 90,000th time, goodbye. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I can't wait to talk to you again soon.